Welcome, everybody. This is our first show of from Peace Made Simple, trying to talk about what makes living a good life, a nice, simple life. Just to tell you real quick, this whole program that we've got set up, that we've got running, what we're looking at is the ancient philosophy of stoicism. If you don't know, stoicism, it basically teaches that the path to a good life lies in mastering your mind, acting with virtue, and accepting the world and the things that come of it as is. So my name is Dr. Michael Donaldson. I will be a co-host.
And I'm Jovani, Patterson.
What you all don't see from behind the scenes is we'll have this linked to the comments and stuff. But as a student, a life learner, what I've done is I've purchased this here box of cards. It basically has 50 different quotes from famous and maybe not so famous Stoics, people who lived in the ancient Roman times to modern times, and some quotes that just kind of resonated throughout generations. And so what we've decided to do is at least these first 50 to 75 shows or so is to pull one random card at a time. Just because I like to be organized, I pull it about 24 hours before the show so I can kind of start getting my mind right.
He cheats.
Jovani's going to see it for the first time during this presentation. So authentic, grassroots, what you're thinking about these quotes. So please, while we're going through this stuff, think along with us. I know Jovani will talk about it too and how to do it, but comment, like, send messages. We'll do something in the future podcasts where if you have a question, you have a comment, you send it. We'll definitely address it as it comes up. Jovani, before I go on, you want to talk about anything?
No, man, I'm excited. Peace made simple. Like, we're going to break it down and just apply these like how these things apply to real life. We see a lot of other podcasts out there or videos out there that kind of go through stoicism, but I don't think outside of like Ryan Holiday, there's not many people like just kind of going through this, how they practically apply it and evaluating how these things happen either over the past week or how they can kind of challenge these things, challenge themselves in the upcoming week. And I think, just the authenticity and the realness I think we're going to bring to this show.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of information. Like, we're not the only ones. We're not the first ones. We won't be the last ones to kind of address this. But there's a reason why stoicism and ancient philosophy, other avenues have kind of made themselves available lately. And that's because people are still trying to figure out how to live a good life, how to live a peaceful life, and what that means. And so this is where we're jumping into this conversation. I talk really fast when I'm excited. I'm apologizing in advance, but I will remind myself to slow down. So let me just real quick, don't want to spend too much time today going over this all. We'll unpack it over the time that we're all together. But there are some principles to stoicism that you should really be aware of. And we'll link this later so that you can kind of have a cheat sheet with it. The big seven really are dichotomy of control is one. It's basically to understand that there are certain things that are within our control, but most things that we experience lay outside of our control. Even within myself, internally, I cannot control everything about myself. I can't control my height. Yeah, you can say you can control your weight, but to an extent. Mm-hmm. You can control your mood, but only to an extent. Sometimes I wake up in a bad mood. I didn't choose to be in a bad mood, just happened, right? So, but what we can control internally is how we pause, how we think about something, how we try to use reason and virtues to determine the next steps. That is within our control. It's very minimal, but if we center that, you can live a good life like that. So that's the first one. The second one is living in accordance with nature. So, I mean, if you look, I just posted this on a personal account the other day. I mean, I love birds, right? So I'm a bird nerd. So, but I just learned the other day that house sparrows, they are non-native to the United States. They're actually from Europe, and they are like little bullies on the block. Once they want to nest somewhere, Like that's what they do. They'll attack other things for their resources, for their nests. And so sometimes to understand that, like, we are a part of this, right? We're part of the grand design. We are part of this whole situation. We're with nature. If nature is doing something, it's not to us or against us. We're just a part of it. So living in accordance with nature, understanding that what sets humans apart is our ability to reason and be rational. But with that being said, then, that's our task, is to be as rational and a social being as possible, knowing that we'll have innate feelings of anger and angst and frustration and things that are natural. All right, number 3 is that virtue, and not virtue calling or virtue signaling, but virtue in its truest sense is the only true good. That things like wealth and health and fame, while we might take pleasure in them, they're indifferent. They're neither good nor bad. Those things are just without of our beings. They're not part of us. It's what we put value on. But the true value is what we have internally. And those are big 4. The big 4. Being wise, being courageous, being just, being temperate or modest. So those big 4, if you ground every decision that you make, whatever life throws at you, you take a pause and you try to go through a checklist. Is this wise? Is this courageous? Is this just? Is this temperate or modest or balanced? If it's those 4 things, now how I define it could be different than how Jovani defines it, right, buddy? Like you can see something as being just as different than I see being just.
Yep.
But my actions, if I'm really sold on those 4, then I'm living what would be a good life, right? Like I can find easy happiness that way, even though he and I could be completely against each other in certain areas. What I find to be courageous, he could think is foolish. What he could say is wise, I would think is not so wise and kind of ignorant. But within our own, but we can't, if you go back to the first principle of this, I can't control what Jovani thinks and how he's interpreting the world. And he can't do the same to me, but I can interpret it the way I can reason and rationalize. Absolutely. Which at some point, another podcast we'll get to, I'm sure I've read a quote before, but it's, we can't get mad at people for having a different internalization. Either they know more than we do and we need to kind of check ourselves and think they know less than we do, and we shouldn't hold it above them because like the law of order, like some of us are more intelligent when it comes to book smarts than other people. Other people are really smart in the moment, right? And so some of it is just moderate. So the idea is to think about perspective taking.
You got some friends there.
Oh man, it's like COVID days. It's like COVID days. It must be a mailman. And number 4 is amor fati, which means love fate. It means, whatever is taking place, whatever happens, is intended to happen. It's not like if we have to go through like a hurricane, right? Or there's a tornado. Like it's going to happen, whether we want it to happen, whether we didn't want it to happen, whether it hit your neighbor, whether it hit your own house. The idea, though, is that, you start to appreciate the events that you have to live through, right? You gain wisdom, you gain just morality. You gain, these kind of ways to think about life based on the obstacles. So I know Ryan Holiday is a really smart dude. Love to meet him one day, but he, talks about the obstacle being the way.
Yep.
Right. Like
it's a good book too.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yep. If you're facing something, instead of putting that indifferent, right? Instead of saying this is good and this is bad, what you're really looking at is, okay, I need to pause and I need to get through this, whatever this looks like. So you're loving fate, right? You're not trying to change it. You're not, that's not going to help you find that inner peace and tranquility, which we're trying to help, establish.
Yep.
Number 5, I got the shirt on today. I told Jovani at the beginning. Memento mori. It sounds like it can be depressing for some people. But it really just means remember that you're going to die, that we're all going to die. Like, and we can sit there and think, oh, this is terrible. I'm logging out right now. But what makes you really appreciate the life that you live right now is knowing that you could die tomorrow. Right. And not to take things for granted. Again, a lot of reading, you can catch up on all this. We'll send like book links and stuff out. But, in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, at one point he talks about how he thinks that his children are going to die at the end of every day. That when he's saying goodnight to them and he's sitting there and he's watching them while they're sleeping, he thinks this could be it. They might not wake back up. But what it does, though, back then too, you got to think ancient Rome and, to 2025, child rearing, childbirth, infant mortality rates, young children mortality rates.
Treacherous.
Right. Yeah. So that was one part of understanding it. But in 2025, we still can, you respect and appreciate your children, your spouse, family members more if you don't expect them to be here tomorrow. So that's one of the pillars. Number 6, I'm not going to use the Latin, but it's premeditation of evils. So it's, we live in an age where we think of, let's put this positive energy out. This is what I want my life to look like. And this is what's going to happen. Because if I speak it into existence, it could come into existence. But what Stoics would sometimes argue is that you could look at things that are going to happen at their worst. Because if it doesn't happen that way, one, if it happens, then you can kind of prepare yourself. But two, if it doesn't, then you're already thinking better about your situation, right? If I'm sitting there, I'm like, today's the day I'm going to work, but I'm going to die in a car crash on the way, right? And I imagine like the worst case scenario. I take the tunnel every day. The tunnel is going to implode. There's going to be a major problem. That's it. If I live to go through the tunnel and get to work, I'm appreciative about getting to work, right? So it's this idea of think about the worst that could happen, but it's really to strengthen your own resolve and resilience. And then the last one that we'll just briefly touch on is emotions as judgments. The idea here is to examine your thoughts and replace irrational beliefs with reasoned ones. So we're going to all have strong emotions. There's going to be times that you're really happy, really sad, really angry, really excited. But really what those emotions are is how we're perceiving something that's happening to us or for us or against us or with us. And we put labels on them as this is good and this is bad. But the moment you start saying this is good, you've just released your personal comfort, like your own well-being at an external factor. And you're saying, okay, I love Jovani. Jovani is my boy. We've known each other for a while. We get on here, we're having a good time. It's awesome. But the moment we start putting in okay, it is a good thing to have this show. Well, what happens if tomorrow Jovani says this thing sucks? Right? I've automatically lost something that wasn't mine to begin with. Something that I'm just we talked before off air, but this is borrowed time. This is a borrowed event. It could be a wonderful experience and I can sit here and enjoy it. But instead of being present in the moment, if I'm thinking, this is how it's going to be every week, all the time, and then it doesn't happen, then all of a sudden it's not so good anymore. And so we're going to lose that idea of balance and happiness through self. So those were the 7 real quick principles of Stoicism. I'm sure there's people out there that are more read. I mean, I'm pretty well read in it, but there are more read in this. And by God, message, let us know. But from all of my reading and my studying and my understanding, these are the 7 major pillars that if we attack these, then you can live a quote unquote good life where you are just happy to be alive when you're alive, that you are present in the moment, and that you take pride in your ethics, in your character, and your morals. And those are the driving factors in every decision that you make. And when you make a mistake, just own up to it, think back and see what you can do the next time. So those are the major pillars. Hopefully that wasn't too boring, my friend.
No, we're getting into it. This is a good foundation.
Good. All right.
Yeah, it's a good foundation.
So we'll put all these notes on, I guess, on the site, have it available to you. And then as you join us and as we're talking things through, see where we're aligning with these 7 pillars, see what you agree with. That's a nice thing about philosophy, right? Like, Stoics, the word stoicism means like something like the white, like a painted porch, right? It's a philosophy that, when we think now about philosophy, we think about, oh, you're going to a university, you're taking seminars, you're doing this reading of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and, guys like that. But really, it's a bunch of people sitting around having a conversation about what makes life good.
Yep.
And they dealt with this 3,000 years ago. They dealt with it since humans have been on this planet. Once we were able to start surviving, like what is a good life? And so that's the idea here. We're not going to try to get too academic. There's plenty of papers and other things that you can do for that piece.
Well, I'm not academic anyway, so.
That's right. So what we'll do is transition. Like I said at the very beginning, at the outset, I got that box of cards. We'll link it. I just love it. I just love it because it's quick. It's if you pull a card, it's kind of like just full transparency. Like, I'm a Christian, so like I get a Bible verse of the day. I'll read over it, and it helps me set my mind on this call. But so these cards do the same thing. It's I can kind of flash through the cards, pick one, and just kind of resonate or reflect on that day to help keep me grounded. And ask myself, that's one thing that Marcus Aurelius suggested. I don't know if you like to journal, whatever the case is, but Meditations is his personal journal, right? It's not. It wasn't intended to be, a bestseller. It wasn't intended to go around all of Rome. It was intended for him to reflect on the day. And even if you're not journaling, I would say one of the best ways to improve like your state of mind and where you are as far as being calm and confident is to reflect at the very end of the day. Because we all make mistakes. But the idea is, can we grow from them, right?
Yeah, well, I think it is important to journal though. Like, even in my own life, I have to find. I find that at least nowadays, like, you just consume so much. It's always consumption, whether it's TV or music or just whatever it is. Like, it's always content coming at you, and that's one of the things I think that's more important now more than ever, is being able to get that stuff out, right? So journaling is a method to do that, and I think before, like in old times, like when the Stoics were like the original philosophers and Stoics were out, like, there wasn't TV, right? They were out all day, they were communicating and conversing with one another. So they weren't as they were consuming the nature, right? They weren't consuming artificial, what's created, hypotheticals, like we get now, right? We get fed all fantasies and stories and things like that. And that right there, I think, is allows a lot of room for, it plants a lot of seeds for our minds to wander. So journaling, though, is a way to get the clutter out. And then again, the stillness and reflecting on the day is another thing I think is like, it should you should do it because it allows the mind to calm down, right? We get this, there's this kind of thing now where our minds now are just conditioned to always be entertained or always be on to something. So that stillness, that reflection gives us that time to just be.
Yeah, spot on. We talk about like the level of anxiety and depression that people have today, and part of it is documentation and the medical field and things of that nature. But I had done I did some reading a couple weeks ago, and it just stuck out to me. Anxiety is not something that we should be ashamed of. It's pretty natural, right? And early on, the idea of like the anxiety was to keep us alive, right? Like, is that a tiger in the bush, right? Do I have enough food? Because I don't know when the crop season's coming to an end. I don't know what we're going to deal with, right? Is my hut or my village, are we prepared for whatever may come, right? That anxiety kept people alive, right?
Yep.
But now, if I want to eat, I don't have to worry about going through the savannah and am I going to find something and am I going to be able to kill it? I go to the grocery store, get into work. I don't have to take, a 4-day hike to get to, the next major metropolitan. But I jump in the car in 15 minutes. I'm where I need to be, right? So the anxiety is just misplaced. Right now, we're fearful of things like, am I getting views? Does someone like me? Do they think I'm attractive? Do I have enough money? What happens if the stock market crashes? Those things don't really have anything to do with your actual survival, but that's kind of where, and it goes to like what you were saying about the journaling piece. And I 100% agree. We are so inundated with information all day, every day, whether it's entertainment or some level of something that's trying to grab our attention, that very far and few between do we have moments in space that we allow ourselves to think and to reflect. And so I really appreciate the time to come on and do this stuff with you, because it forces me when I'm thinking about things to share how we're reflecting, right?
Yeah.
All right, so like I said at the beginning, after this episode, and you, if you have comments you want to share, you want to send messages, I know Jovani will set up, how to get in touch with us, how to leave messages, all of that, and we'll have like a quote unquote mailbag, and we'll make sure we respond. But since this is numero uno, we don't have anything like that, so we're just going to jump into the activity. So the activity today, I'll go ahead and introduce the quote for us. Jovani, you want me to read it, or are you gonna?
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess that was my part. Right. All right. So hold on. Yeah, I'll pull up the quote. Here we go. Oh.
There we go. Okay, so this was the card that I had pulled today. It is something that Jovani is now going to have to kind of internalize with you all. All right. So Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How important it is to say to oneself, this purple vestment is some sheep's hair moistened in the blood of some shellfish." And so I put like a little comment in there just so we know what like the vestment is and why it's important. So a purple vestment, it's a purple toga that used to be worn in ancient Rome by generals and emperors. And it was a symbol, it was a status symbol. It represented power. And so people who had power made sure that they wore this to, as a signal call. And, but people who didn't have it, were envious, right? And so this quote, what we'll do is as we're kind of unpacking the quotes, I'll give you like what my take is overall, and then we'll just figure out how it resonates with us. And then we'll try to come up with some modern examples. So again, how important it is to say to oneself, this purple vestment is some sheep's hair moistened in the blood of some shellfish. So what Marcus Aurelius, when I'm reading that, what I'm thinking immediately is that if you scale away what it is, the purple toga that represented power, it really was just sheep's hair. That's in blood. So we gave value to this purple toga, but it could have been, yellowed sheep's claw or wool, right? Like whatever that culture, that society deemed to be of value, they could have just labeled it as such.
Is that what they made it out of?
The togas, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Sheep's hair moistened in blood of shellfish. I don't know what kind of shellfish, but I just think it's kind of interesting, right? Like the thing that is a symbol of power, what he's saying here is we just attribute power to two things. Like it's a symbol, right? But at its core, all it is sheep's hair.
And when you think about it, like, is who gives it power, though, right? Is how important is to say this purple vestment is, and I guess the quote is kind of reflection of like, this doesn't mean anything, but the other part of it to me is like, who gives it power, right? I was talking to a very wealthy businessman in Baltimore once, and he said like, people go around saying I have a lot of power. I don't have any power. I don't want to control anybody. I don't, I just want to be left alone and live my life. Yes, I got a lot of money. I like money, but it's not what, I don't serve it. And, people say I have a lot of power, but I like, by who? It's like they give me power that I don't have or I don't want. So I just think it's interesting to reflect on that, right? So one, I think from this quote, he's like looking at it and say, hey, this, what was given to me is just a symbol. But also I think I know we can't control anybody else, but it's just kind of like, because you can also be in that position. You could also be looking at someone that say, oh, they have that by their name, or they have that badge or that title. And you can automatically like kind of lower yourself, or like kind of think differently in your head about yourself because of somebody else's symbol, right? And I think it's just to me it's a reminder that like the things on the outside don't matter. And this is just what I'm getting off the top.
Yeah, I love it, and that's one thing that we like, that I really like about the premise of this show. Like, we'll have a quote, and like that's the nice thing about philosophy, right? Like, I'm a language arts person. Like there is no right or wrong. We can sit here and we can have other people jump on here and be like, yes, there is. No, there's not. Like, yeah. No, there's not. Like because I could read this thing and I could think, well, this is just garbage. I could think this has no value to me. It's not going to remember, because, philosophy in general is just about like your participation in the world and your perspective, right? And so if you read something like this and you're like, no, like if we're talking about symbols and powers and societal structure and who gets power and what that symbol is, then the symbol has more meaning than what Aurelius is kind of pointing at here. But I think in my estimation, I think if it doesn't have if it's not functional, right, then the value that's given to it is purely for societal reasons, right? Like you have like this toga, right? This purple vestment. All right, so let's just say if it's a purple toga and that represents power. Does that purple toga? I mean, I'm not a history expert, right? Like I don't know what these togas are necessarily made of for all the different classes, and but let's just say if you have a caste system or a caste system, like if I had like a white toga and it covers the same body part as this purple one, and it keeps me just as warm or cool as this purple one, then the function of the yoga itself or the toga itself is the same, right? The actual function of what it does. We can take this down to like, I don't want to spoil the modern examples that I've got listed out that I can't wait to kind of unpack. But it's like when you go to eat something, right? And part of this idea, one of the pillars, if we were to backtrack a little bit, would be around like think of things as nature provided, right?
Yep.
And think about worst case scenarios. And if you're thinking about worst case scenarios, let's just say starvation, right? Like there's a lot of people who are food insecure, right? People who have food insecurities, when they eat, they understand it's not about like gaining pleasure. It's for It's to fulfill a need, like a human need to get nutrition, right?
Yeah.
What Stoics would sometimes do, and what some people modernly still argue, is that we have become so accustomed to this like quote unquote easy life, right? Where like we could just go to the grocery store, that you fast intentionally. You could do that so that you show yourself how it feels to be hungry, because then you can empathize with people who are going hungry, right? Or if food, all of a sudden you lose your job, you can't afford food anymore, you can survive because you've kind of trained yourself to like, this is how you get by when I no longer can do it. But what other Stoics would also do is they would remind themselves, oh, this is a delicious steak, right? Like we're going to sit down, we're going to eat. I'm just using steak as an example, but we're going to sit here and we're going to eat this premium meal, right? But as I'm digging in and I'm like, oh, I am, so fortunate to have this. Also think about what it is. Like you're eating cow. Nothing more, nothing less, right? Right? Like if you're eating, a chicken breast, like what? Yeah, yum. Okay, Chick-fil-A, their chicken is the bomb, and I want to be sponsored since we just gave them the plug. But like your spicy chicken sandwich is delicious. Oh, yum, right? But to sit there and to pause for a second and be like, it's just an animal. Right. That's what we're eating. And that's kind of what he's getting to, is everything that we kind of put a value on or to, it really is just something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I think we become unconscious to the social condition, like how we've been, I guess, trained to think about things in culture. And then what you're referring to is like a conscious realization of what things are, right? And then if you go down like Pythagoras route or whoever, like you can even deconstruct it or break it down to even further. Like a chicken is just a collection of cells or what have you. Like you can go as deep as you want to, but it's a matter of staying present in what's in front of you, right? Because then you don't put yourself too high, you don't put yourself too low, and you just are. And in that moment too, like this is just chicken, and I'm just here, right? And it's like it's what I'm doing right now. It's not there's no significance to it. It's like animals, man. Animals, like they just do what they got to do. Like, they're not looking for the premium meal per se. They're looking for a meal, and they're oh man, I'm gonna go to this rock over here because they got the best bugs versus that over there. It's just I'm hungry. Let me go get some food. But it's a matter. It's just interesting that we have to consciously remember to just be. Like I don't know. To me it's a fascinating thing that we go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again bird nerd here. I just had to change the bird seed because the one that I had bought for 2 years, they stopped making that specific mix, and my first thought, these dogs. My first thought was, man, if I change this seed, they're so used to coming here, they're going to stop coming. And then what I noticed is population is still the same. They still come through the feeder, right? They don't care. It just goes to your point.
You thought you were giving them the good stuff.
I know. Yeah. And I probably saved a little bit of money on this, right? Like I was like, oh, okay.
But that's funny. Like, what made you think that was one bird feed was better than the other, right? It was the packaging.
It's the marketing. It's the marketing. Like they're like, oh, this is the kind of these are the birds that it'll attract, and it attracts more than this other one. And I don't think that's true. Like it's been tested. They're still eating, and I still feed them every 3 days. I gotta put some stuff out there.
The birds come up, man. This guy
just ruined my life. Just ruined my life.
Can you imagine the birds talking?
I know. my neighbor down the street.
They're really sending tweets now, right? You know, they're putting on Twitter. You know,
goodness. They're more logical than some people that are on there. So I think it's like little things. It's like big fan of Texas. I must be hungry. A big fan of like Texas Roadhouse's biscuits, right? Like I think when they're fresh out, I'm like, oh, you can just give another basket. Like this is just how it's gonna go. But like if you think about it, sometimes the decision is like, where are we going to go to dinner? Where are we going to get? Oh, I really want some. Sometimes that is the deciding factor. You go to Red Lobster for their cheese biscuits, right? You go to Texas Roadhouse for this biscuit, right? But really, what's a biscuit? Is flour, some water, right? Whatever seasoning they kind of do with it, right? Like, if you start thinking like that, then if Texas Roadhouse no longer existed around here, then I could find somebody else that has biscuits, right? Like problem solved, right? So
and what are biscuits? They're just food.
It's just food. It's just food. And people who don't have food insecurities, I think that's really interesting to me too, is, living, I've been fortunate to have lived long enough to see, varying levels of the spectrum. So like as a child, we were poor, like we were on welfare, we were getting government assistance, at least until I was like 9 or 10. And I remember going to Broadway and standing in line to get food, right? And that food, when you didn't have any, like government cheese was the thing, right? Like I remember as a kid, like, oh, I'll just take that cheese because like it's so good. I can't tell you if I would like it now, right? But at that point, we didn't have cheese, so like that was good. Right, that was good. And like Spam, I would never go out and buy Spam now as an adult. But at that point, like that's what we got. And you know what? You fry it up, you put it on a couple pieces of bread, and you're solid, right?
Now, let me ask: Do you ever get the taste for Spam? Like
every once in a while. Every once in a while, I kind of just do like a cheat and then do like a fried bologna type of situation, which is,
Well, what about Vienna sausages?
Oh man, that is one I couldn't get over.
I got one for you. Potted meat.
Oh yeah, that was good. That was good. I mean, my mom, she would make
some saltine crackers. Potted meat and some saltine crackers. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's so bad. It is so bad that when we were kids, at one point, like we would get noodles, right? Like I don't remember what kind of noodles they were. They were a little thicker. They weren't spaghetti noodles, but like we would get like some like generic ketchup, and like my mom would like put some ketchup on, stir it in the noodles, and that was like spaghetti at that time, right? Like that is like what we used and what we ate, and I like it. And even to this day, like randomly, I'll have a barbecue sauce and piece of toast, like because that's like just kind of a survival. But now
cold pizza.
Right, exactly, right. So then, you fast forward 35 years, and like I'm not in a spot like financially where I'm struggling. So like I won't purposefully make my family eat ketchup noodles, but I will. I'll put some ketchup on some noodles.
No, you gotta learn.
Yeah. And so if you have food insecurities, you're more likely just to like that animalistic, that part of like being part of nature. Like I need to eat so I can survive, right? And it's not until you become comfortable where you're no longer faced with those insecurities, then all of a sudden you start changing. Okay, well, I want the premium stuff, but like again, what is premium, right? And so this is a great segue into some modern things. I kind of cheated before the show. I got a couple examples, current scenarios, because a lot of people talk about they get frustrated around like stoicism and other ancient philosophies because the ancient philosophers didn't have to deal with some of the things that we do, right? Like you said, they didn't have all this, things that were forced for their attention. I mean, I'm sure they did, but at a different level, right? We don't have the media frenzy that we have, or the sense of needing to be entertained all the time, and internet connection that is kind of just destroying people's, ability.
But what kind of entertainment do you think they had, though? Like, I mean, I was like during the day, like what would someone do for entertainment?
Well, I mean, just think about how far we've come as a civilization, right? So just going to take a bath or using a restroom is something that if I again, not a history major, but I would bet 2,500 years ago, if somebody said, look, you can take a warm shower by yourself with no one around and you can do it instantaneously. You don't have to hunt it. You don't have to cook it. You just flip it on, right? That's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so I think part of what their quote unquote free time was around, okay, well, we'll go to a bathhouse. Well, what are you doing in the bathhouse? You're all sharing the same water. You're not bathing every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there's a lot of communing that's taking place. I mean, there's like they're not really historical depictions, but like what people would do with, you know, pots like that they would use the bathroom in, and like how they would just kind of like throw them down the window, out the window. So you're just walking down a street and you got, you know, feces coming down, right? Like I think what they did for entertainment was like legit, just survive probably. I mean, that's, I think, you know, I mean, we're just at such an advantage, like just weather patterns, right? Like, you know, we can anticipate. Now we can't anticipate everything, obviously, but you know, meteorologists wrong all the time. No offense to any meteorologists that are listening, but like if you're like, you know, 50% likelihood of it raining, it could be a beautiful day outside. But we know.
I think they knew that stuff though. Like part of me is like, man, because they were more. I can imagine they were less entertaining, consumed by artificial, and like more engaged in reality, whether it's entertaining reality or not, right? But it's, you know, one, survival, but two, like you're out looking at the birds, you know, you're observing nature, you know how the flow of animals happen, migrations, things like that. So you're kind of aware of things like that are going around. So I think, you know, even probably weather patterns, you know, like where the stars were at night, you know, so I think there was maybe a better understanding of how the world worked around you. And then like the Stoics though, I guess they, you know, had a little bit more luxuries of, I wouldn't say all, but you know, had a little bit more luxuries of kind of actually processing these things. Like, oh, like this is what it is, kind of thing. I don't know, because even getting to this, like the whole idea of like the philosophy and observing and self-reflection, it does come from a place of, in a lot of sense, I want to say comfort, at least in my opinion. Like it just kind of comes from a place of being able to actually think about these things, right? Because if you're just trying to survive, you're probably not thinking about being a good person. You know, you're not thinking about how to live a good life. You're just like, I'm trying not to die today.
But I would contend though that if you were threatened, and I agree, but I would also add to that if you knew that your existence was threatened, right, that you didn't know how long you had, you wouldn't really care so much for the externals anymore, right? If you weren't sure, like think about some of the pillars, right? Like there's no guarantee that you're going to live a minute past now, right? And if you're even those people that are faced with this potential loss of life, if they weren't in a spot where they could just genuinely sit and reflect, I would believe that there's a part of them that would still kind of think, there's things I can't control. You know, it is it is what it is, right? And I think that would be part of it. Maybe they didn't put a name to it, or they would consider themselves like a lackadaisical philosopher who just sitting around like pontificating and thinking. But you know, there have been, you know, I believe it's Seneca who was born into slavery, who didn't have, you know, the say over his own personhood, right, over his own body, and still managed to understand, I can't control these things, but what I can control is how I respond, right? How I think. So even when faced with those challenges, I think that kind of resonates throughout, which I one of the things I really like about Stoicism in general.
Yeah.
All right. So Modern day examples. I think I've got a list of 4 or 5 of them. See how many we get to. One modern day example that we could kind of dig into, and we kind of hit on some of them already, is at least in certain cultures, this desire to have luxury items, luxury brands, the idea of the consumer market at its peak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine someone spending thousands of dollars on a designer handbag. What are they one, like, why would they spend that much money? And then 2, what do you think like this quote would kind of suggest if we unpacked it a little bit when it came to this one scenario?
So I do have kind of like internal, because I like nice things, right? I do like nice things. And now for certain things, I probably wouldn't spend much money on, but I think it's okay to have nice things, but also, realizing just like you said, like what it is, right? Like for example, I like cameras. I would like to have a nice camera, but I understand my phone has a camera. They're cheap cameras. I would like an expensive camera. Now it does things differently, but it's still just an artificial eye, right? It does the same thing an eyeball does. But I think when it comes to the material, right, a lot of people acquire these things for some level of status. And, I think it's important to realize like that's not a status, right? That's artificial. And if you are acquiring it for status, there's something, inside of you that that you have to look into. Me personally, I wouldn't say I'm like into brands, cars, things like that. I mean, like I said, I would like a nice car now, but it's not because it's for things like safety and comfort is part of it. But that's I could drive a beat up Honda Civic today if I needed to. So those things really don't. It doesn't it doesn't matter to me. But I think I do think that there is a balance. Like it's okay to have nice things, but understanding that this could be taken away, it could be gone tomorrow, and still be okay.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you wrap that piece up with that statement, right? And part of that is, as you were speaking, I was thinking Stoics kind of get a bad rep sometimes for not being aloof, but basically like being bloodsuckers of fun, right? Like can't have anything because like it's all external and we can't have fun. That's not the point, right? The point is not to allow things like that are indifference to have overwhelming power over you and your culture, like your moral compass, right? And your ethics, right? So like if I'm thinking about like a person who really likes designer handbags, well, like there's a function to it, right? They carry something, right? Maybe they like the seams on it better than some cheaper brand or some knockoff, right? But ultimately, you could take, if you didn't have the resources, you could get like a knockoff and still have the same function, could still have very similar colors, right? Like it could still fit the same, right? The idea would be the same, the purpose and function would be the same. But it's when we start saying, we're getting made fun of, or we feel down because we can't afford this $2,500 bag. Instead, I got this $50 bag, serves the same purpose, has the same similar colors, does everything that the other one does, except that status symbol, right? And I think once you start aligning your sense of self-worth and happiness to this specific example, the bag, then that's when you've given your power over, right? That you've lost yourself. And I think that would be where the warning is. If you have the resources and you want to spend $2,500 on a bag, that's fine. But if you lose said bag, are you all of a sudden devastated because this bag was who you are, right? It was the representation of you. And so I think it's not that Stoics, I'm going to speak in general, but I don't think Stoics would argue you can't have nice things and you shouldn't want nice things. But it's just at what cost personally are you willing to do this, right? So if I had a watch, I could use many examples, but if I had like a nice watch and I was like, you know what, I don't even know. I guess Rolexes are still a thing, right? Like I want this real nice watch, but if I lose it or I crack it or something happens to it and I'm devastated over it, then you really like that's the opposite of having like a calm, centered life, right? Also, if I'm willing to take something that belongs to someone else so that I can have it, I've just negotiated away my inner tranquility, my peace, my ethics and my morals for this item.
Now, what about like a complete indifference to something too, right? I think that's I don't want to say detrimental, but I don't think that's good either, right? And I'm trying to get the point out because like when you stop caring, like I think you like, for example, the bag, right? You should take care of your things too, right? And it's not to say that you're worshiping it, or it's not to say like it, but I think the way I can think about it is being a good steward of it. And so I think there's an element of like, because to some people, like if you're a good steward of your money or of your resources or what have you, that could, that can give off the impression, oh man, this guy just loves money or just likes his things. But and granted, it's not about necessarily what other people think, but it is, it's just one of those kind of internal struggles that you may encounter when it's like, yeah, nice, like nice things. I go get my car washed every week or every day. It's I just like, I try to take care of the things that I'm blessed with, versus it being I'm serving the thing or worshiping the thing, or this thing is, look at me, I'm washing my car. No, like it's not that, but it's just another dynamic of, or even with the purple vestment, kind of idea. It may be washed or cleaned on a regular basis or brushed, so there's no dirt in it. But you still remember that it's just sheep's hair with some shellfish, the blood of some shellfish. But at the same time, you're tending to it. You take care of it, not to worship it, but to just just taking care of my things.
Yeah, and I think there's power in that, right? I think it's just like one of those. It's just a slippery slope, right? It's one of those things that like you had talked about. I love the word like that you used around the idea of like stewardship, right? Like you have this, and you shouldn't just throw it away or be nonchalant about it. But I think it just comes down to, okay, you enjoy your car, right? Like you work hard, you're like, I want a car, and I like it. The car that I purchase, like the idea is like, well, why are we purchasing that one car, right? If it's around safety, is it a functionality, or is it to get eyes on you, right? Is it one of those, like, I want to be at a red light and I want people to look at me as I'm roaring, right? Like now all of a sudden your happiness is engaged with people that you don't know, that you can't control, who might look at you like you're an idiot because you're at a red light revving your engine, right? Right. But at the same time, you might be next to somebody who is like really excited about being next to such a nice car. You should take care of the things that you can get, and you can, there's functions to them. But I think if something happened to that car, like how broke do you feel? Like, are you like, I'm in mourning because somebody keyed my car? Because if not that you are like hoping for bad things to happen, but remember the challenge and the obstacle is the way. If somebody keys your car, are you like devastated over this? Or is it like, well, I needed to get it taken care of because like the next rational step is X, right? So I just think it's it's one of those slopes that, you know, it's a perfect mix. You don't want to be nonchalant about everything. You know, I could go into a store and honestly, I don't care about watches. Like, it's just not a thing. I don't care about them that much. It's just a personal preference. As long as I know what time it is. So if I go into a jewelry store and somebody says, hey, look, you can get this $100 watch, or you could get this, you know, $2,400 watch. Like, to me, that is a complete indifferent. Like, they both tell time. Yep. I don't need it to go in the water because I'm not swimming, right? Does it fit my wrist, right? Like, that is completely indifferent. Like, I don't really care. I'm not going to purposely scratch it, break it, whatever. But if I do like this idea of what it looks like, then I just start saying, okay, but what about it is what's attractive to me? Right. Yeah. And to think this is just about like finding that inner peace, right? That idea of, you know, what makes you happy. I think the danger is if you get the things that are top of the line all the time, because that just start asking, like, why is that the one that I want? Is it because I want to be noticed? Is it because it makes me feel more important? Is it because I feel like I've achieved a certain level of success? Because then it starts taking away, you know, then you're giving that, you know, that you're giving virtue to something that really doesn't have any real value, really, which I'm going to hit real quick before we go to the next one. And the underlying point with the luxury brand is if somebody bought a designer handbag, which is fine, absolutely fine, 100%. But are they able to recognize that it is a combination of materials like skins of animals and synthetic fibers? Yeah. It's nothing more than that. Yep. It's the value that you placed on it. So I think if you're doing both of those, you know, again, it's about that reflection. Why did I buy that bag? Oh, I really want people to notice me. All right, we need to reflect on this. Yeah. Like, why does it matter that people are noticing you? Yeah. All right, so that's the first one. How about this one? Now, this one, I know I am a I mean, we're doing the show, so like we're just as bad as everybody else when it comes to this one. But in 2025, things that people didn't have to deal with, you know, 2,000 years ago, is the idea of social media and the idea of becoming an influencer or getting your eyes out there. And the premise is that people often project an image of wealth, beauty, success, or whatever on social media platforms, attaching personal value to the number of likes, followers, or comments they receive. So let's break this one down a little bit. So from a stoic philosophy and a perspective, what would you say about social media and the constant drive to have followers, comments, likes? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, they're just, I don't know, digital changes of ones and zeros, really. And, you know, those ones and zeros have translated into, what do you say, rushes of dopamine. But, you know, but that's really what they are, just ones and zeros. I mean, even a picture, an image, the text on screen, just ones and zeros from its literal binary sense. But, you know, there's that, you know, we do live in an age where, you know, there's people's livelihoods. You can make a lot of money on these social media platforms. You can gain influence, but, you know, just like the ruler, Marcus Aurelius, I mean, it's just the ones and zeros, you know, that's all it is.
Just numbers, right? Just numbers. Yeah. Yep. And so then the idea is when people, again, there's nothing wrong necessarily, quote unquote, wrong, in my opinion, to try to, like, the one thing I like about this show, right, is that, you know, it's the premise, the purpose is to have people reflect upon their lives so that they can live like a happy life, like legitimately, like what, like, you know, peace made simple. Like, how do we kind of ground ourselves and find joy in life in tumultuous times, and regardless of circumstances that you're facing. And it would just, the argument around the idea of social media is, if this is a one-off show and you and I are the only ones that watch it back, like there was a purpose to it, I'm good with it, right? If there were 100 million people who end up watching it and it's something that really helps them get through whatever they're dealing with, good with it. But it's not going to be the be all end all. Whether it's gets great reviews and people jump off all over the place to get this kind of self-help or this kind of reflection practice down, or no one does, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
Right. I could want and would like to see things go a certain way, but that's not in my power. It's nothing to really, worry about. And I think there's a lot of people, especially younger people, who become depressed. We talked about how anxiety, depression is misplaced now, but like you want to be the person who gets paid to play video games, right? Like, and if people don't like it, then, my life is shattered, and so I think just like you said, social media presence is just about numbers on the screen.
Yeah. Ones and zeros.
For time's sake, you let me know. I've got a couple. How many do you want? I got 4 more. You want me to go 1, 2 more? What are you thinking?
Yeah, let's do one more. Let's do one more.
Yep. Okay. Let me. I like this one a lot. I like all of them. That's why I put them together. Let's do. Well, I'll speak to one by myself, and then we'll go into the last one because this one okay. I did want. I was like, because you just moved, and I enjoyed my house. I moved here, 3 or 4 years ago. But there is something around, like especially conversations around home ownership, right, and accumulated wealth. And one of the suggestions that Stoics could have when thinking about owning a home and material wealth is just to remind yourself that a home is what you make your living situation, but it really is a structure that is put together using wood and nails, bricks, whatever else. I'm not an engineer, but like whatever else that they use to make that house, right? Like that is what it is. So when we're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, look, here's an idea. Like, okay, luxury homes, big deal around here. Like everybody wants a luxury home. I'm going to spend $500,000, $600,000 for this luxury home. But it really serves the same function as a single family rancher.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. You might say you need more room. You might want the 3 bathrooms, like all of those are all desires, but they're indifferent. Right? It doesn't really impact your real life, right? Like you have a house, somebody who lives in a trailer or a 1-floor rancher, they have a roof over their head. They have a bathroom, they have, relatively speaking, safety from outside factors like rain and stuff. So just to keep it in mind, like if it breaks your heart that you didn't get the house that you wanted, you're allowing your joy and your inner peace to be navigated and negotiated based on a structure, right? And so to think about that. And the same idea is like accumulated wealth. I mean, we all want it, I would say, but it's just numbers.
That one's real though, man. That one's real though, man. Because when we just bought a house and we were looking at houses, and there was a house that I really, really liked. There was one that I really, really liked. And didn't get that one. It was in Baltimore County, in Ricestown, and like I thought the layout was perfect. It had just space for everything. But things just didn't turn out right at the time, and I was like, man, like I was staying up late, like staying up at night, just researching the house, and I was going through and imagining where I could put things. It was just like a crazy, kind of crazy experience. But another friend of mine was like, "Hey, man, I know you really like the house, and we didn't get it. You didn't get it, but anything you want can be recreated. It's just a structure. It's just a building. So don't get too attached to anything because one." Anything can be built pretty much anywhere. And there's other houses that are out here. So, that's a real point because like I said, I just went through that and just, despite And we have all this conversation, about things, not having, like, not affecting you for some like status symbol or for attraction. But that whole house situation, man, I did have to remember and get reminded that, hey, man, it's just some lumber and some nails.
And how hard is it though, right? Because when you're in it, right? Like when you're in
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough.
It could be tough. You could be
Like,
some sleepless nights.
when I tell you, man, I had started like shopping for the house, and and we put in an offer, and it didn't even hear anything back. Right. Matter of fact, this was all before we put in an offer. So this was like, man, like, oh, because we went to see the house and it was so nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, they had a nice backyard. I was like, man, this could be perfect. And yeah, I just had to remember, yeah, it's just some wood and some nails.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, think about what could happen to a house, right? If we're thinking about worst case scenarios, right? Like, hell, I mean, the house, we've seen what happens when there's wildfires and stuff, like, and people are like devastated that like their home is gone. And this is not to dismiss what they're going through, right? Yeah. But it's an obstacle. Like you have put your like happiness in this situation. If my house burned down, I am sure I'm going to be upset. I am sure that I will try to figure out the next step. I'm sure there's going to be moments that I wake up and I just go through the moods and the emotions of being a human, right? Yeah. But the idea is it's like sustainability over time. You just have to start like thinking, if this happened, hopefully everybody's okay. Yeah, materials we can go through, and I do want to give not probably the platform to it, but real quick, I did want to like give shout out to Community Christian Church. And this is the only reason I'm saying this. When I was a child and into my young adulthood, I was raised Roman Catholic. And like, if you know anything about Catholic Church, right? Like Catholic Church is a very distinct building, right? They have like the building and they have the pews and the way that they handle the Eucharist. And it's just very formal. And it's something that I was accustomed to, right? But going to this idea about it just being a house, right? That is a house of worship for sure. But at my current home church, it is non-denominational and there are no pews. They are folding chairs and there is no altar. There is a stage. There is no choir. There are some musicians. There is no line up and get the Eucharist. There are little packets of Eucharist. The church, the Catholic Church, is in a standalone building, right? Like it is very obvious where a Catholic Church is. This is within CCC is in a for lack of better word, like an office park, right? Yeah. But what do both of them provide? It provides like a place to worship, right? So when you're thinking about, if I looked at a building, like I said, my childhood, young adult life, like, there's a Catholic Church, there's a Catholic Church, there's a Catholic Church. How could anybody worship in something that's not like this? Yeah. And then you start attending this, then you start realizing it's just a structure, right? And so it doesn't lose value just because it doesn't meet your quote unquote expectations of it. Yep. Okay, last one, big one. Now, you were a brave soul today. I'll make sure I woke up early this morning to get my walk in. You got your run in before we got on here. But I was
still sweating, man, when I hey, man, I was still sweating. I hope you can't see the sweat. My shirt's still wet, literally.
Look, maybe it's your hair that you got, because like if I was sweating, it just
I don't know, man.
Okay, but this is around the attainment of an accepted or quote unquote accepted or desired physical appearance, right? And this is the idea. Consider how people often now overvalue their appearance, obsessing over their physical image and why it's significant to them. So this is different than I'm doing things physically to be healthy, right? Like I go for a walk because like I don't want to have major cholesterol issues. So got to walk 2-3 miles a day. Okay, that's different than I want to have like the 6-pack and like I want to look like Hugh Jackman in the most recent Deadpool movie, right? Like that is not the goal, and why would it be, right? And so the idea here is, what is your take on like if we were thinking about physical attraction or physical characteristics, why are people so worried about meeting this one image? And is it functional because of health, or is it aesthetic because there's a reason beyond what's good for the human body, thinking about nature?
I think there's a lot to kind of go through in that one, because one, the human, like us in America, um, weren't always kind of like as big as we are now, right? So there's an element that's our food and diet, but then you have this social media kind of culture that wants to artificially get to a certain image, right? So the images, just the images with the most likes have a certain look, right? So that's why now you see ads for the male girdles, the body shapers, and the pills and all these type of things, because to me that is a sign of vanity, and attractiveness, is to some people a status symbol, right? More attractive. So whatever that means to people. Now, personally, I think I do want to be more attractive, but it's not necessarily to get more attention per se. It's just I personally want to be the best version of myself. And with that includes, maybe eating better foods, right? Not eating a whole bunch of candy and donuts, and also moving, right? I work from home most of the time, and a sedentary lifestyle can set in. So I need to be actively using my body, right? When the Stoics existed, like you talked about, like you had to go into town to take a bath, right? The bathtub is I got a bathroom in my room, it's not that far. I don't even need to put on my Fitbit, but to get there, it doesn't even register.
Does it count if you don't have a Fitbit?
Yeah, no. But I think and the kind of interesting thing about the fitness or health area is that it can disguise vanity under the idea of I'm trying to get healthy, right? And I think it's one of those things that provides an easy avoidance of self-reflection. Like I'm just doing this so I can, and just to lose, to me, again, my personal goals when it comes to health and fitness is, to be the best version of myself. Now, if I want to get the 6-pack, but if I don't get them, I'm okay. As long as I'm doing, the things that are keeping my body healthy. I don't want to stress myself out to the point where I can't function. I'm not trying to become, anorexic, trying to, try to get there or anything, or bulimic. Yeah, I think bulimic. Yeah, whatever one that you're obsessed with getting that image. So if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Maybe it's not my body type, but that is kind of the aim, I have in particular, but not obsessing about it. But I'm just going to do the things I need to do, whether it's eating right, drinking enough water, exercising. I just want to do those things to be the best version of myself.
Yeah, and I think that would be kind of like that moderation piece, right? That idea around like the Stoic principle of zeroing down and what will make you happy, right? Where can you live a life where you are at peace, right? And if you are doing all of these things, you're eating healthy, you're working out, you're moving, like those are all things that are naturally gifted to us, right? Like if you are moving, we're intended to move. We're not really intended to be stationary, right? If you're eating healthier, right? Like it's okay to fuel your machine, your body, the way it's intended to be fueled, right? And not over processed foods and all of that. But if you're doing it for recognition, like, see, this is that to me, that pivotal moment. If all of a sudden you go from doing this because it's what's best for you physically, then if you're putting a stock on because you want attraction from, whoever it is that you need acceptance from, then you have given your peace of mind over to control of something that you can't control, right? But at the same time, you can't be angry if we're thinking about the natural order of things. I know a lot of people get upset where, so and so is doesn't think I'm attractive. I think this is just funny, especially raising teenager, right? Like so and so doesn't think I'm attractive, but I don't think this one's attractive. But this one thinks I'm attractive, but I don't think this one. It's like a cycle, right? But you lose that center of self if you start worrying about what people are viewing, how they're viewing you, because you can't change that. But also, we have to understand we can't be mad because they think something else is more attractive, because that's like their perspective, right? And so I'm going to go back. I know I won't do this every show to you. I won't do it. I promise. But I'm going to use birds as an example because I talked to my wife about this yesterday. I got this bird field guide several years ago, but I had just gone on a walk a couple of days ago, and I was like trying to look over some of the birds that we had seen so I can look at some of the descriptors. And there is like an indigo bird and a bunting, and the males are beautiful blue colors. The females are more like tan gray woodish, right? Same thing with like the northern cardinal, very, very red. Female, very, very tan and woodsy, right? The idea is that the male is supposed to be trying to have the female attracted to them. The brighter the color, the bigger the plumage, the more that the eyes are there. So if we're thinking about nature, right, I think there is something to us that we're trying to attract a mate of someone, right? But it's also understanding that if they're not, like, I think where the Stoic philosophy is, again, to survive as a race, to have a mate, to reproduce, like you need this level of attraction. But if the only reason why you're doing this is for that purpose, and then you get upset because it doesn't work the way that you want, that this is the one person that you think is attractive and they don't think you're attractive. Like that's not anything to lose sleep over, because that's a natural order, right? You could be a bright red northern cardinal, but not as bright and red as this other one. Right. And these animals, they don't fight over, like once they're mated, sure, there's like frustrations, right? But that initial mating piece, like if you didn't get chosen, move on. Right? Move on.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting too. Like, I mean, just a random thought on this. Like we all have different perspectives, right? So where one cardinal may see bright red and the other one see dull red, right? Another cardinal may see the same two birds and the other one appears brighter. And then even as us humans looking at it, you can say, oh man, that one's obviously brighter. But even us, because you got people that are colorblind, you got people that can't see certain shades of certain colors. So it's kind of interesting because that plays into just the perspective. And to me right now, that is fascinatingly deep. But because like while you're sometimes try to please everyone or try to please a mass group of people, everyone's eyes aren't the same. And, it's just kind of interesting to think about, because then instead of trying to match, like trying to find whose eyes you're attractive, you're just trying to be you, and what's attracted to you will come, in its due time, and it's in the right setting, appropriate season, what have you. And you have to be okay if it never comes, right? Too, like, because there's sometimes it just never comes. But it's just kind of fascinating to think about that while we're trying to, like, oftentimes the image is right to impress a certain person or a certain group of people or a certain thing, right? Even with the vestment trying to have power over certain people, right? But it's important to remember that the perspective of the people is all is can be different too. So that humbling part is just, this is just some, just just a vestment in sheepskin, or sheep's hair moistened in some
Seashell.
blood of some shellfish,
Yep.
Man, it's kind of deep though. Like,
well, and think about this, right? Like, I'll just go leave you with this little bit of tidbit, just to go back with the idea of the importance of perspective. Like I just said, I think it's the indigo. I would have to double check my notes, but what I saw and what the picture of the of the characteristic of the bird is bright blue. Like, it is one of the prettiest blues that I and I like the color blue. I think it was like just amazing looking. Believe it or not, it's actually not blue. It's a black bird, but it's reflecting certain parts of the sun that we perceive to be blue. So it goes to that idea of like perception.
Yeah.
So, and
you just saw me. You just saw me in a bad light that night.
That's right. That's right.
Or that day.
That's right. The camera angle wasn't quite right.
Yeah, it just wasn't right.
So the Stoics would argue that you are, if you kept true to yourself, like you had said, like they believed, not all of them obviously, I'm sure there were some that were atheists, but there was an idea around the importance of fate or deities, and that really ultimately, if you can't control it, what you can control is, I want to move around because I want to be as healthy as I can be. I want to be the best version that I can be of. But not, if all of a sudden, like, I have a bum knee, if I went outside and like I tripped and I blew my knee back out and I can't walk anymore for a couple months, I shouldn't sit on the bed like depressed because this has happened. This is just part of the obstacles. But to say that the intrinsic beauty and worth that we have is really by detaching ourselves from that idea, and finding inner beauty. I know this is what people, it's like, oh, here he goes. But it's about virtues. Are you kind? Are you caring? Are you compassionate? Are you empathetic? Do you try to be wise? Do you try to be courageous? Do you try to be just? Do you try to be temperate? And think about relationships that last.
Yep.
Right? Like, you and I could be friends for the next 45 years, and I could end up going from 6'2". I'm already on the shrinking end. I get it. I was 6'2.25". I'm already under 6'2". It's not that long. My daughter's going to be taller than me. It's going to happen. But I'm hunched over. I'm, whatever the case, I'm walking with a cane. Like, all of that shifts. But like, if we're good, right? Like, if we're good, then we're good. If we're good together, if we're, you're really loyal, and you're courageous by sharing, important information with one another, but trusting and loyal at the same time. Like, at some point, doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair, doesn't matter if you're stuck in a bed, like it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. So yeah, those are, I had a couple more, but I think that really did kind of get to the point. I'm just going to reread the quote one more time for anybody who is watching. The goal through this whole program this week was to unpack the quote, how important it is to say to oneself, this purple vestment is some sheep's hair moistened in the blood of some shellfish. And keep that in mind as we reflect on it, as you reflect on it. What's it look like in your own personal life? One of the things that we said that we would like to kind of close out some shows with, if we had like letters and comments from you all, we would start talking about them at this point. But is this a quote that you, Jovani, found to be something to reflect on? That like, how would you reflect on it moving forward? What is our mission of the week? Are we going to kind of well, obviously next time we'll touch base on this. We'll just kind of bring it up real quick, see how we live with it. But what are you thinking? Is this something that you want to dig into?
Well, yeah, I think I'll, definitely will reflect on it, throughout the week but this is one I think I do kind of live by, more often than not. Of course, there's those times you have to reevaluate because, like, when we started talking about the whole house situation,
Mhm.
made me realize it. But when it comes to attachments to things and stuff, and symbols, um, I generally don't. I mean, they don't really mean much to me, and I also, kind of treat people the same way. In that, like, they're just like other people are just people, right? They whether they're wearing a designer brand or not, it's they're just a person just like me. Um, and but this is something. This is one of those kind of like reminder quotes, and it is something. It's a good reminder, right? Because you never. I always say, um, it's always good to have the fundamentals, right? There's not a basketball player out there that doesn't practice dribbling. There's not a basketball player out there that doesn't practice free throws, right? At least not a successful one. And this is one of those things that, yeah, I'm dribbling during the week, but this is a good one to say I'm going back and practicing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we had a lot to unpack today. Like I think it's rationally, it makes sense. It's unnatural sometimes to remember what it is that we're experiencing, right? So if we're in the present moment, we just take sometimes the present for granted, right? That we don't really sit here and think what a problem is until that situation presents itself. So we can sit here and wear designer clothes, but at the end of the day, if my happiness is linked to my wardrobe, a many number of things could happen, and I would now be in a boat that's being capsized, right?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden I lost my job and I couldn't afford the Nikes that are $250, and I had to go back to, I don't even want to age myself, but my 8 or 9-year-old self going to Payless to get a $6 pair of shoes. Well, how distraught am I over this, right?
I used to be like that. I used to be like that.
Yep. So I
Yep.
think it's one of those things that, especially as we unpack this, I think it's a good note to obviously like to live your like that is the purpose, right? That is the whole purpose of the show is to talk about ways that we could live our best life. And you might be one of those people, if you're listening or watching, could be like, nah, I like the merchandise, like I won't be happy without it. I mean, if that's you, like, and that's where you are living, and that is like your level of happiness, but it's just just think about like the rug that could be pulled from under you.
Yep.
And that's where the danger lies.